Hello, this is Jeff Byers, and welcome back. And this is a lecture for Project 2. This is Project 2. This is going to be UV mapping your character, how to prep your character. So you can go ahead and pause this at any time while you're watching the video. If I move too fast, you can always pause it and rewind. You also have the choice at the bottom right hand corner. If you click on, you can go ahead and slow the recording down. You can slow the video down if you want to, and that's easy to do. So feel free to do that too as well if you can't keep up. But pause it whenever you want to by just hitting your space bar or just clicking on pause on the video on YouTube. Alright, so what we're going to do today is our character is finished, and we may have color coding, but there's no UV mapping done on this object. So this is what we have so far. So your model should be low poly. That's exactly what you need to do. And what you're going to do with this is you're going to make sure everything is separated out like I have here. So you can see I have the backpack separated from the coat, the jacket, the sleeves, the armbands, and the gloves. I have the arms separated. I even have the fingers separated. I can separate the fingers out if I want to. I've got the headphones. You can break those up into littler pieces if you want to. So the idea is that it makes your life a lot easier when you're UV mapping. Now, when we're laying out the UVs too, I'm going to talk about how to lay out UVs and a new technique that we're going to use to lay out UVs called UDIMs, and that's something that in film they're actually using, and it's pretty much industry standard now. There are some software packages like Unreal and Unity that don't really support UDIMs. Maybe they do now, but as of now they really don't. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and separate. I want you to separate all your pieces out, so go ahead and pause the video to do that. Make sure you're in low poly, and you probably want to separate you want to separate and get your sword out of your sheath if you do want to UV map that, which I think you probably do. So I'm going to go ahead and separate those pieces. So now my sword is all separate in small pieces, and that's fine. We can always put them back together. That's not a problem. Alright. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is, you can see that I paused the video, and you can see that I've got my sword in separate pieces, and there's some other things I wanted to do to this object. Okay, so here's the thing. If you can separate things in smaller pieces, if they weren't built out of one piece, it makes your life easier. It really does. So if you can separate the belt buckles from the other objects here, that's going to make your life a lot easier. If you can separate these things into smaller pieces too, that will make your life easier. So it's really hard to UV map things, and it's a lot more difficult to UV map things that are in different shapes that are put together, and so you're going to have to separate those. So to do that, you have to select the object, go in here, and extract. That will extract all the pieces into smaller pieces. Okay. So when you do that, it does a couple things. In your outliner, it will add a what's called a polysurface grouping node. Okay. That's not always good. You want to get that out of the group right away. So this is how you do it. You select all the pieces, and you go ahead and center pivot everything, and then you delete by type history, and then you freeze transformations. These three buttons under the poly modeling shelf will help you. You click on all three of those. That will help you clean all that stuff up. Okay, so I'm going to pull these out. Okay, like that. And so all these poly surfaces are right here. But they're accessible anytime I want to go in here. When I'm laying out UVs, I can select all these separately, which is really nice. If you still have pieces that are kind of together, but maybe were modeled separately, you can go ahead and try to extract those as well. And basically, this one says it was extruded that way. So if you have things that are extruded, that you really can't really separate them, those objects will be harder to UV map. Okay, like this belt. Okay, so if I go in here, and I'm pretty sure that that was modeled, or I modeled that separately, but if I extract that, let's go ahead and see if I can get that extracted. There we go. Select that and extract it. Yeah, I think I did that a long time ago, and somehow I think I brought it to ZBrush as an OBJ, and I couldn't separate it after that fact. But the idea is that this makes it a little bit harder for you to UV map. If you have stuff like that, it's not impossible, it's just harder. Alright, so let's move on. So let's clean everything. So select the whole object. This is a low poly, right? Make sure you're in object mode, okay? And you want to go in here and center pivot, delete by type history, and freeze transformations. That will clear everything out of there, okay? Alright, so that's your prep work. What I would suggest too is that you select your object and you duplicate it. So Control D and place it in a new layer. So meaning I'm gonna click on this guy right here in the layers, okay, and I'm gonna double click on this and call that low poly. Okay. Alright, so with that selected, and it's already telling me it exists. I've done this several times. Low poly 01. Okay, save it. Alright, so that low poly, it's in there. Okay, so I'm going to shut it down. So I'm going to make sure it's in there. You can select it, make sure it's, you right click on it, add selected objects. So the idea now is that you turn that off, and that leaves my original that I had before. So what we want to do here is, if you've done a good job with edge loops and supporting edge loops for smoothing, your model should smooth just the way you know. If you find that things get really soft, you need to add edge loops. Let's say for this, for instance, this, if I hit the 3 key, that's what it looks like. Okay. But what if it gets really thin? Then what do we do? Well, you want to add edge loops and continue modeling until it looks good. Okay? So if you don't want it to look soft, if I hit the 3 key, that looks much better. So the idea is just to make sure that you get the look that you want. Okay? If you want a soft look, then you don't add edge loops, but if you want something more finished and with a hard edge, you have to add that edge loop. Okay, so right now what I would probably do is select everything, hit the 3 key, make sure you're in object mode, hit the 3 key, and that will smooth everything. And then just go around the model and make sure everything looks like you expect. Make sure nothing looks bad. You know, make sure nothing looks hard, you know, soft or too hard edged. Okay. And I can see right here, I don't really like how these belt loops look. Okay, they're not defined enough for me. Okay, they look like they're too soft. So how do we fix that? That's easy. So what you want to do is you just want to go through here, and you want to add edge loops to these parts, and this will really help. And again, we're just trying to get everything looking good before. This is the prep work we're going to have to use. So I'm going to add an edge loop here and here. Okay, and we're going to add an edge loop here and here. Okay, we're going to do that to this guy over here as well. Okay, we want this to look nice and sharp. And then we'll do the other side as well. So these are things that you have to do while prepping to make sure your model looks spot on, or you have the separation that you're looking for, so they don't look puffy. And when I talk about puffiness in class, that's usually because it means that you didn't put an edge loop and in that separates and defines that piece enough. And sometimes you make a mistake, just Control Z back, give it a try again, and it's not catching. Let's move that up there, and let's do another one down here. There we go. And we need one by the belt. That kind of is messed up there. It looks like I have one on this side, but do I have one on this side? Probably not. Let's do that. And these are just little things you do to get ready for UV mapping. Okay, so I'm going to look at everything else. So there's that, and I hit the 3 key, and now let's look at it. And much nicer, well defined right here, well defined right there. So you can see that if you have soft edges where they shouldn't be, you want to harden those up. You just add edge loops, and you can see that's really defined now. The belt buckle is defined. These pieces are defined, and that looks good. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to continue on down. The jacket, the pants, okay, and then the boots. Again, the boots look a little like they could use more help. They're a little bit soft looking. I like those straps being well defined. So that's something I'm going to go back and add more edge loops to, and we'll come back and we'll finish everything up. This is the prepping area. This is where we prep everything, make sure everything looks good, and just double check everything, the loops, everything. Make sure nothing's sticking out. I got some things happening here that needs to be looked at. So this is the time to really make sure your model looks fantastic, or as close to what you want it to look like. So it's really important that you don't have soft edges where there shouldn't be, because I will find them, especially like straps like this. And you know, we all make mistakes, but you know, this is the time to fix them. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video and come back. Okay, I'm paused the video. Now I'm ready to move on. So you can see that my my boot looks much better. We've got that nice tight edge around here that doesn't blend into the other part, so it really is nicely defined. And I can put buckles on here, which I wanted you guys to do that as well. So next thing we're going to do is I got to do one more, select it, because I've made adjustments, added edge loops, and caused more history to the model. So I'm going to go ahead and center pivot. Whoop, didn't want to do that. That's the wrong one. I'm going to go ahead and center pivot, duplicate, and freeze transformations on that, so that just cleared everything out. So the next thing we're going to do is make sure, now the model's cleaned up, we're going to now smooth it. Now we know everything's going to smooth okay. So you've added all the detail, you're ready, your model's completely finished now. Completely finished. So now we're going to smooth it at 1. Okay, this is for, you cannot UV map a low poly and then smooth it. Your maps will not look the same. So we've got to smooth it at least one time, okay, before we UV map it. So mesh, and go to smooth, go into the option box, reset it, and we just want division level at 1 and smooth. What that's going to do is not going to give us a lot of divisions, okay? It's going to give us one division, right? Now we've added history. Now let's click off, select the object, and now we can just delete by type history, okay? We don't need to freeze transformations. We already done that. Alright, so now this model is the medium poly, so I'm going to select it, make a new, so I select it, make a new, this is what I'm going to click on, create new layer, and assign selected objects. Click on that layer, double click on it, and this will be our medium poly, okay, and then underscore UV. So we are now completely ready to UV map. So we're all prepped up. It's completely prepped up now. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a shader on everything. Right now, just one shader for everything. And we're going to go in here and right click over this and assign new material. And this is going to be an Arnold shader. Go to Arnold, Shader, and click on AI Standard Surface. Okay, and that's it for now, and we'll wait for the next video and I'll take you through the rest of the steps for UV mapping.